We're live. Hey, Brandon.
Hey Norman, what's up? How you doing?
What's going on? Thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, of course. Happy to chat and, great catching up.
Where are you right now?
Yeah, I'm at Salesforce. I just got hired about a few weeks ago. I'm at the Irvine office. So super stoked. That's been a big logo that I was trying to, attack, from day one from Elevate, have a top five and it was like Salesforce, HubSpot. Then, getting that HubSpot job for the first logo, that was sick. That was gonna be cool. That was definitely motivating. Then just to kind of like look back and be like, like a big brand, then a startup, then like a freaking huge brand. So it's pretty cool
Yeah.
to kind of be where I'm at right now. Looking back, it's really cool.
And this interview is pretty much delayed because you enrolled like nearly last year. Is that
Yeah,
correct? Yeah. It's like the summer
it's
of
it,
last
it seems like 5 years ago, honestly. Like
year.
honestly, I remember I was chatting with you and like it
Yeah.
was more like a one-on-one to see if I'm a good candidate. And
Yeah.
I think we were in Texas and we're looking at houses and I'm
Yeah.
trying to get like a new career going on. I was like, this let's do it. Let's roll the dice. then
Yeah.
and sure enough, I have a new career, getting paid really well. Never got paid this much in my life. And it's very cool. It's like very rewarding. I feel in my free time, I'm always like learning, 30 minutes to President's Club. I'm reading Fanatical Prospector,
Yep.
Chris Voss. Like it's always fun, it's cool to be in this world.
Wait, all right. So like bring it back to that moment when you're in Texas a year ago.
Yeah.
You're like in your evaluation stage of what you're going to do with your career. I remember you've been a business owner. You're also a
Mm-hmm.
veteran, right? And so you've had these different lives, and you're thinking about tech and technology sales when you were thinking of Elevate, and then there's obviously always different options. I mean, you can look at YouTube videos for crying out loud, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
what was it that for you said, okay, I Elevate's the right choice?
Yeah, of course. And what kind of got me started in tech sales, like you said, I was a business owner.
Yeah.
I was trying to get tap into real estate, but I kind of wanted something different. Like I wanted to work for a company, and my wife's always scrolling on TikTok, and she saw like Tech Sales Tom and all these all these tech sales things. I was like, she's like, you should get into it. So I was
Yeah.
doing some research. There's not much content on the internet, which I think is pretty good because it's not really a tap market. So there's not much content out there, which is
Mhm.
good. You're kind of getting in from a ground up. But there's a few companies out there, but it was cool to chat with you, Norman. It felt like the other schools were like just handing it to you, but you did like an interview process. You kind of hand selected candidates that that was going to do well, and you gave us like, hey, download the VDR, send us a message, send me a cold email to make sure you're a good candidate. And at first I was like, this is kind of weird, but like I like the challenge. Nothing's easy in life, so I figured might as well just do it. I'm not really doing anything in my life right now. I come in between, being a business owner, then working construction and real
Yeah.
estate, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna put my head down and put a good effort into it. And after meeting you, Norman, and it's definitely been a good change. But from the very start, it was just kind of like I knew what was gonna happen. Like I had no doubt,
Yeah.
which is pretty cool.
That's awesome. And what I like the most about that is the you seeing that there was going to be work, and that was almost like a piece of the excitement because it's, hey, if I can complete this and do this, I know what the end goal is going to be and what's good the end result. And to that end, I got to ask, so like you and I chatting last year after you'd had these experiences in your life and choosing different careers, and you're moving into this career path, you know,
Mhm.
we're having this conversation in the beginning and we're saying, here's what tech sales is, here's what this world is like, here's what these BDR roles are, etc. And then you're in the program and you're in the curriculum. Was there something in particular that was more challenging, a hard skill or so that was harder for you to kind of like develop and get comfortable with?
I think more the emailing side because
Yeah.
everyone's like, "Oh, I'm book smart or street smart," and I just use that as like a defense mechanism. But I think just the email part was definitely hard because I was never really good at school, but I was always a hard worker. Always working multiple jobs, so it's more of a grinder. But
Yeah.
as you get throughout your career in tech sales, like it's not really relevant on the emails. Like to write a good email, if you could write a good text message, you could write a good email. So don't put too much thought in it. So at first I was like, oh my God, I'm not good at writing emails. Like I'm not good at like, English class, and
Yeah.
I kind of have my doubts. But
Yeah.
as you go through the role,
Yeah.
it's just chatting with your friends, and the more salesy you are, the more gimmicky you are in this role, that you're not going to do well. But if you're a
Yeah.
human and you kind of just relate to people and don't draft emails that are so complicated,
Yeah.
that's easy. Like you'll do well. So at first I thought it was going to be scary, but over through the life of my BDR sales, like the writing the email part, it's not that hard. You get some good emails, you build the core, a good intro, good
Yeah.
middle, and a good call to action. Like, hey, let's book some time to meet. And it's pretty much, you can scale that up, like, you want to get better at subject lines. You want to get better at maybe shorten up the text. But other than that, once you get it down, it's a great tool to have in your toolbox.
So some of what I'm hearing, and maybe I'm wrong, and I'm just thinking of like all many different students have had in the past and what they may have struggled with was it, it it's almost sounded like when you got into it, there was almost an overthinking component.
Yeah.
You're writing your outreach. And so like we're trained in the high school academic college world that it's like, dear sir, madam, right? And then
Mhm.
it's, this kind of long essay type format. And it was totally flipped. And so
Yeah.
that sounded like that was the hard thing to kind of be comfortable with.
Yeah. And that's definitely, like, after listening to podcasts and being in the school and being in multiple roles, like less is more. Like if you could relate to the prospect
Yeah.
on a human level, and I was just listening to a podcast today where like no one cares about the product. It's all about their problems. And if you could discover their problems and align with a solution, you barely have to talk about the product. So if you're good
Uh,
at communicating with people and
yeah.
providing value and being a good helper, you will do great at this job.
So I would take it to another angle here. What we hear so often in the enrollment process when we're speaking to
Mm-hmm.
new climbers that we take on is there's usually challenges of either landing interviews or after landing interviews kind of moving to the final stages and kind of securing the role. How would you describe that experience for you before we began and then maybe afterwards, like when after graduating Elevate or being in the program, would you say Elevate made an impact and what did that look like?
Yeah, I think Elevate definitely put me in the mindset of like, hey, just apply, like apply to everyone. And you'll find people in the role that kind of analysis by paralysis, and they
Mm-hmm.
they they do a lot of thinking and a lot less doing. I'm more of a doer. Like sometimes I don't think, like I'll start businesses left and right. But as far as when it comes to, like getting a job, it's
Yeah.
basically like the shotgun approach. You go on LinkedIn, you see who's hiring, and just apply. Like, and if you don't even want that job or it's not a good fit for you, there's still value there. You still get, to chat with a recruiter to see how that works, chat with a BDR manager, chat with director of sales. Like you are in these conversations that'll help build your skills. And
Right.
it just makes it like, if you only do 5 interviews, like that's not good. But if you do like 50 of them, you're just going to get your reps in and you'll do better. And a lot of it, it's just be human on these interviews, like provide value. Hey, I want to help these customers. Like I like to help people. Like that's the name of the game, just helping people. And these interview process, at first they're scary, but the more you do, the more comfortable you will be. And honestly, like it's a lot easier to get seen by these big companies. Like you're like, oh, like Google, Tesla, or like these big companies, these brands that are so big, you kind of get discouraged. Like, hey, they won't hire me. But look,
Mm.
I got hired by HubSpot. Like I just came from I went straight. I swung through, to the fences. I just went
Yep.
for it.
Yep. Yeah, you did not limit yourself at all. You got in, you got enrolled, you're graduating, and you just went straight for one of like the most well-known and reputable companies in our country.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it
Excellent.
was pretty cool. I was stoked. And like your little tactics during the interview process, like it definitely helped a lot. Like salary negotiation, that was always a fun thing to kind of like have that in the toolbox. Just like
Yep.
I'm not that efficient at it, but it's cool to like you could do it as far as salary negotiations
Yep.
and like just the simple things that most people would react to. If you do it a little bit different, you're like, oh, like I didn't expect this. And the interview would be like, oh, they're actually good because they're changing that pattern.
Yeah. Do you think that that's probably why most folks struggle in these interviews is because, and it may be that they don't have enough of those reps in, but
Mhm.
you were saying thing earlier before about providing value. And so it makes me think most folks do not do that, meaning they make the conversation very transactional, very much like, my name is Norman,
Hmm.
this is what I do. I want to work with you guys because you seem to have a good culture and a growing team. And it's like very flat and transactional. Like, why do you think most folks struggle?
Yeah, I think you just build that skill over time. Like at first, you're like, "Hey, I don't know what's going on. I like your company. I want to work for you." But as you get those reps in, you go from company to company, or just you're just growing in your career. It goes from like, "Hey, I'm me." Then like maybe if you do it for a year or two, or just different roles, you're like, "Hey, this is me, but hey, this is how much value could add to your team. I could do cold calling. I could do cold email. Like I'm always hitting my numbers, my meetings. I'm also a good team player. I like to help other people if they have issues." So
Yeah.
you go through scales. Like the first stage is like me. This is why I'm a good fit. Like me, right? I like the
Right.
company. Then like
Yep.
as you go up, it's more like what can you provide to this team?
Mm.
So you kind of the game change. Like you could like I could imagine if you're interviewing a BDR, and if they just talk about me, and like I like the company, they're new, but if they're talking about
Right.
what value they could add, you could they're a little salty. Like they've been in the game for a while, so you could kind of pick that up really fast. So if you could come in to an interview and just provide numbers like you told me on a resume, like
Yep.
even if you worked at Taco Bell, right? Hey, I
Hmm.
have great customer service. Well, one layer deeper is like, oh, like one day we had 100 customers and I had to get through them really fast and efficient and provide that customer service, got the 5-star review. So you want to put like a dollar or amount or a KPI attached to these activities. And most people think like being a server, like you have no relation to tech sales, but being a
Right.
server, you're juggling tasks, you're helping people, you're a listener,
Yeah.
so it's always good. Like if you have self doubts of your previous careers, there's always like you worked in retail or you worked as like a server. There's always value in there to provide during an interview.
Excellent. Well said. Okay. We're coming close to time. Let me ask you a final couple
But
questions.
yeah.
All right. So climbers that are enrolled,
Hmm.
what would you say to them to put them in the best possible position for them to be successful?
I would say just brush up your resume, make sure it's clean, professional, a lot of numbers based and like goal based.
Yep.
Um, Try to knock out maybe do the smaller logos first for those interviews just to get those reps in. But then at the same time, try to get those big dog players like the Salesforce, um, there's so many big companies out there, but always go for the smaller ones first just to practice, but still take those big interviews because you never know. Like when I got hired at Salesforce, I had multiple people say, "Hey, rejected, rejected, rejected," and these were tiny companies, but the big companies were like, "Hey, we'll give you an interview." So a lot of times, the big brands are the easier to get in.
Wow.
So don't be discouraged. Like don't get down on yourself. Just keep going on LinkedIn. I remember during the classes like, hey, like apply to a bunch of people. And my wife she's a software engineer, and she's telling me like when she was looking at jobs, she would apply maybe 20 times a day. Just always applying. Like don't put all your eggs in one basket. Always be applying. Just like when you're in sales, like always fill your pipeline. It's the same thing.
Don't put all your eggs in one basket. That might be the title of this video.
Definitely, yeah.
All right. Well, Brandon, thank you so much. I'm going to end the recording here. I really appreciate you.
Yeah, awesome, Norman. Thank you.